I want to bring in Congressman Peter King, Republican from New York and a member of the House Homeland Security Committee. And, of course, he was also in Congress during the 9/11 attacks. Congressman, good morning.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Just within the last hour here on MSNBC, we heard from the chairman of the Intelligence Committee about all this. So let me play what he said.
When I was briefed by the FBI, they told me they had no knowledge of his overseas trip to the Chechen region. And when, in fact, the secretary then testifies and says that they got pinged, that there was a flag that went up that did indicate that he was traveling to Russia and to the Chechen region. That's very important because this Russian intelligence communique warns about this individual traveling outside the United States to join extremist underground groups. And so, you know, we talked a lot about connecting the dots and stovepipes after 9/11, and here we are 12 years later, and the fact remains that it's still not working.
Congressman King, is it not working? Is there a disconnect?
Well, it's working much better than it was on 9/11, but it's not working as well as it should. And one thing I've been struck by is that, listen, I could understand if the FBI didn't get all the information maybe they should have gotten, or maybe it wasn't available the first time through. But then, for instance, when the Department of Homeland Security knew that he was going to Russia, the older brother, apparently they couldn't get back to the FBI because under FBI regulations, the case had been closed by then. I think what Senator Rubio said is true. In fact, I think we've known this for the last 3 or 4 years. It's very difficult for Al-Qaeda to launch an attack from overseas. The attacks are going to come from within the country, from people who are off the radar screen, which means it's harder to find out who they are. That requires more intensive investigation. I think it requires local police to be more involved. And I think perhaps the FBI should consider adjusting its regulations so it can keep a file on someone open. For instance, did they tell the Boston police about this? Was there any way, do they have any capacity to follow up on that case once subsequent information became available on the older brother? So, no, to me, there has to be less stovepiping, to use that term, and there has to be more integration, taking into account the new nature of the war.
There are reports today, for example, surfacing to this whole point about, what we know and what we don't know, that the FBI was contacted multiple times about Tamerlan Tsarnae. Our own Pete Williams says the FBI tells him they were contacted just once. In 2011, they checked him out. They didn't find anything. What have you been able to find out about that when you were briefed?
We're getting conflicting reports. I've heard it was just the one. Then Senator Burr says apparently on the Senate side that they were told by Deputy Director of the FBI that there were multiple dealings between or contacts between Russia and the FBI. Now, I'm also in the House Intelligence Committee, and we're getting a briefing at 4 o'clock today. I hope this can be resolved. And Chris, also, if I can go back to one thing you said about...
Can I just interrupt you there?
Sure.
Because, I mean, people are sitting back there and saying, how does this happen? How do members of Congress get briefed and be told different things?
Well, that's what I'm going to try and find out today. We have a meeting at 4 o'clock, a closed-door meeting on Boston. The FBI will be there. We have to get this resolved because on the one hand, we're hearing the one contact, and then on the other hand, we're hearing that there are multiple contacts. Obviously, there's a significant difference. Also, we should keep in mind, Russia doesn't contact us that often. I'm not saying believe everything the Russians tell us, but they... Russian security people do not contact us that often. This is so this war is not unusual, but certainly not ordinary. And yet, to me, it didn't get the intensive...
So it should have raised a bigger red flag.
I think it certainly should have. Absolutely.